Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Saint Luminus. And today I'm really excited because we are going to talk about creating delay and verb effects for guitar, but we're going to set them up in an unusual manner to create some really, really cool sounds, trying to get away from the pedal mentality and find out how pros do it in the studio, or in this case, how you would do it in your DAW. So we're going strictly plugins, no pedals, just guitar, and using your digital audio workstation and a stock plugin, you know. So really, any of you should be able to do this as long as you have a computer at home. You can do this. All right, let's get to it by first looking at the DAW that I'm using. It's Reaper. And of course, you can do this in Pro Tools, Studio One, Logic, whatever you're using, you should be able to do this in here. I'm using Reaper, you are using whatever you're going to use, though I do highly recommend Reaper. All right, so let's just take a look at what I have here. You can see I have 3 tracks here. So what it is I've recorded my guitar. You can use, now I'm using my Mesa Boogie Mark V 25 amplifier. I recorded it here into the DAW so we can start tweaking around with the plugins. But of course, you can, as long as you have an audio interface, you could even do this live. You got to set your buffer settings correctly to do so, but you can do this, you know, playing live at home. That's the subject for another video. What I have here are some recorded guitar parts here. I have a cleanish part, so let's listen to it really quick. All right, and I also have a more of a distorted. More of a distorted kind of lead guitar part. So we're going to hear this in both contexts. A little clean chordal thing, and then just some distorted licks. All right, so my guitar is coming on this track. So you can see I've got it labeled here, guitar. And here's where my delay and verbs are going to come in. So what's really important is that we're not doing this like pedals, because in your DAW, you can set things up like pedals, and what that's called is setting them up in serial. You're going through one at a time, one effect, your guitar goes into one effect, and then it goes into another. That's not what we want to do. I don't want to insert a delay and a verb into my effects, because that's not what I'm interested in. What I want to do to start is set it up in parallel. Very easy to do on your computer. A real pain in the ass if you want to do it with pedals. In fact, the only way to do it with pedals is you have to have some sort of external mixer or some little pedal switchers, like I believe the Gig Rig and the RJM Mastermind PBC. I think they have a little internal mixer thing where you can actually do pedals in parallel. But we want to do more than just parallel. But so let's take a look at what this means. Okay, so I'm going to bring you the visual here. When you put things in stereo like you do with pedals, you understand your guitar goes into, say, the delay pedal, and then you plug the delay pedal into the reverb pedal, and then that goes to the amp. That would be a serial connection. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to take the guitar, or in this case, my recorded amp sound, and it's going to go into the delay and the reverb at the same time. So now what I have to do is I have to mix that, and we're going to see that I have to mix the delay, the reverb, and my dry guitar. So there is not really a wet-dry control we're using like you would when you put things in series. Let's go ahead and look in here. My guitar part is coming in here. I just played it. What I have to do is I have to have an auxiliary send, or I have to send my guitar to the delay and verb. Okay, so here the highlighted track is the delay. The highlighted track now is the verb. Let's take a look really quick. Before I send anything, let's take a look. I'm using Reaper's stock plugin, redelay. And I haven't set it up, so I'm going to set it up really quick to say a 500 millisecond oops, there we go. Okay, 550 millisecond, fair enough. 550, oops, 500, back, 550 millisecond delay. I want, it does have a low pass filter. I like my things very filtered, my delays very filtered. So let's say about right here. And I'm going to play with the feedback here in a second. I'm guessing here. Notice something now. It has a wet and a dry control. And this might be familiar to you, especially when you have a wet-dry control on your pedals. In this case, they're separate. It's not one knob. I want the dry turned all the way off. So this is really important when you do things in parallel. For the most part, you don't want the dry signal in there. 99.9% of the time, you want no dry signal. You already have a dry signal from your original guitar sound. But I do want it 100% wet. All right, so now here it is. I'm going to send my dry guitar into the delay. Okay, the way to do that in Reaper, there's a lot of ways to do that. I'm going to do it like this. I hit the routing button. It has a sends where it asks you to add a new send. So I'm going to send to the delay. What I'm going to do is send it at unity. So you can see here, I've got a fader for how much of my dry guitar I want to send into the delay. Okay, I want the whole thing going in. And the rest of this stuff right here, we're going to ignore for the moment here. All this stuff, there's stuff with the MIDI here. You can send MIDI signals, but that's not what we're doing here. All right, so we're sending to the delay. So now when I play the track, what I should have is my clean guitar sound, and I should have the dry guitar mixed in. Let's give it a listen really quick. Fair enough. There you go. So a little bit of a mess because I haven't mixed the two together. So again, I don't have a dry wet knob. Really what I'm doing is I'm adjusting the delay level with this fader here. So now this time what I'm going to do is go ahead and well, I really want to get that feedback. I kind of like, in this case, I like it to be like, say, 3 repeats. So I've got to get that down really quick. So I'm going to adjust my delay really quick. All right. All right. I need a little bit more. Let's hear it. 1, 2. Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah. 2. All right, fair enough. Almost 4 repeats. Okay, we'll do that. I want something a little more of an ambient sound. You adjust it how you want to. All right, now the next thing I got to do is go ahead and bring in the delay. So it just sounds nice here. It adds to this little dry or clean guitar part. I'm going to raise it up. Oops. Yeah. All right, so I have it set up so it almost sounds a little bit like reverb. So I have a level in there that I like. Let's hear it without this delay. Let's bring that delay in. Yeah, all right, so it gives us a nice little background. I might even bring a little bit more up. But let's stick with that. Now what I want to do is the reverb. What I did here for the reverb is I'm using Valhalla plugin, the Valhalla Room. I like the Valhalla plugin. Reaper does have a couple of reverb plugins to use. I just decided to do something different here and use Valhalla Room, but certainly you can use the stock plugins in your DAW. They will sound fine. I'm just going to pick a preset here. I always love halls. A smooth hall I chose. Well, let's try something like this. Something really interesting. Long modulated hall, probably. Notice here, I had the same thing again. It's 100% wet. So if I do this, then I'm letting some of the dry signal in. I want no dry signal. When you do parallel, you want no dry signal. The other thing, though, is I want this. I want a very large pre-delay because I want to separate that reverb tail from my guitar sounds. And the best way to do that, or one really good way to do that, is just to have a large pre-delay, like say 90 milliseconds or 80 milliseconds. Notice that pre-delay is set for you on the majority of reverb pedals out there. You don't have a pre-delay knob to adjust that pre-delay. It is something that is set for you, and you can't change that. So that's something I really love about plugins, that the good ones give a lot of parameters for you to adjust. I'm not going to play with the rest here. I certainly could, and I'm not going to go here and play with these because that's not the point. Notice all I did was I chose a preset, long mod hall, and I'm only adjusted the pre-delay to make it a little long. That's all I've done. All right. I'm going to mute the delay. I don't want to hear it yet. I want to hear this reverb. So the way to do it is, again, I'm going to have to do a send from my guitar. I'm going to send it to the verb. And again, I'm going to do it at unity gain. And let me go ahead. So let's go ahead and play it. And I'm going to slowly bring in the verb with this fader right here. I'm going to slowly bring it up. Okay, let's listen. Okay, now, just a quick thing. I keep making this mistake with the fader and my trackpad because I'm using a trackpad, and sometimes I accidentally do a double tap. And when I do a double tap, it shoves the fader right up to unity gain. That is useful. In this context, though, it's not useful. So let me do it again. But I was digging the sound. All right. Nice, totally usable. I'm digging it. Now let's go ahead and unmute the delay. And now we're going to hear both. So what I have to do is I have to mix things correctly. I'm going to make it easy. I'm not going to change my guitar level. My dry level is set here at unity gain, 0 dB on the fader. All I'm going to do is adjust my delay and verb to get the sound I'm looking for. Usually the volume level of delay and verb should be about the same to start, but let's hear it. Yeah, I did it again, but I remember where I was at. Yeah, I think that'll work. Let's listen to it without these two. So just dry guitar. Not very interesting. Let's bring them both in. I'm pretty happy with that. So I've adjusted my delay and verb to a sound that I like. No worrying about a dry wet knob. All I'm doing is I want this amount of delay, I want this amount of reverb. Again, as I stated, actually it's kind of difficult with pedals to do things in parallel. Now it's arguable whether you like that sound of things in parallel or not. But this video, of course, isn't about doing things in parallel. What we want to do is something very different here. Oh, before I get to that, why don't we listen to the distorted sound? We've only been listening to the clean one. Let's get to the little lead guitar sound. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mute the delay and verb. Let's listen to it dry. Not very interesting, huh? All right. Let's listen to it again, but now with the delay and verb in parallel. All right. I have the effect up pretty high. I felt I needed to reduce the delay a little bit. So that shows you that in context, you have to make some adjustments. Let me play it again, and I want you to listen to how much effect there is, yet how clear the dry guitar sound. It's not being clouded up by all these effects. Let's listen to it again. Yeah. All right. The guitar is still very clear. So notice that when I have this in parallel and I'm able to adjust the pre-delay on the reverb, notice how even at lush long reverb, because it's long, it is almost 6 seconds of decay time. So that is a long reverb, but notice that even despite that, the guitar still is up front. It seems to be, wraps nicely with these beautiful effects to give it some space. So I love this about doing things in parallel. It allows you to get your dry signal to be really clear and up front and not be clouded with so much stuff. All right, now let's do something interesting. We talked about doing this in parallel, that your guitar part comes in, it gets split to go to the delay and the reverb at the same time. But, and then you got to mix it all together at the end. But what we want to do is go ahead and have the delay and reverb in series at the same time. So now we're going to do it in series and parallel. Yes, because you can do that in a DAW. At this moment, I don't think there is one pedal switcher that allows you to put pedals in series and parallel at the same time. I could be wrong, but who knows? Now it gets interesting, because now we're not only just putting it in parallel, I'm going to take the output of the delay and I'm going to feed it into the reverb. So now the reverb is not only getting my dry guitar sound, it's also getting the delay fed into it. And again, I kind of have to play with the levels a little bit to get this right. All right, so the way to do it in Reaper, to do this series and parallel, what I have to do is I have to take a send from my delay, and I have to send part of that signal into the verb. So the way to do that in Reaper, I should say, is I'm going to send this into the verb. Now before what I did, now there's a little caveat here. Before what I did is I send everything unity gain. I'm already telling you by experience that I don't like that sound. I don't like so much of this delay signal going into the reverb. It's somewhere around -6 dB, a little less than unity gain. I like being sent into the reverb. However, there's something else. Right here it says post fader, post pan. Whenever you do an auxiliary send, you have to ask yourself, well, where is this signal being sent from? Because when I drop the fader, I'm turning the volume down of my signal. So do I want that low signal being sent somewhere, or do I want the full signals being sent somewhere? And in this case, well, what I did is, or earlier when I set my guitar to delay and verb, I did it post fader, no problem, it's fine. And if I bring my guitar part down, the effects will all come down because it's going to follow the fader position of my guitar part. But since I'm keeping it in the same spot, unity gain, it won't matter now. But it does matter now that I'm trying to feed delay into the verb. Look how it's kind of low, my delay. What I want is I want to be able to control exactly how much of this delay goes into the verb. So what I want to do is I want to go pre-fader. So now the signal that's going to the reverb, it doesn't matter my fader position. I'm feeding exactly minus 6 dB. And even if I adjust my delay, it doesn't affect how much of this delay is fed into the reverb. All right. So this is really interesting now. Let me go over it again. My guitar is feeding the delay, and it is feeding the reverb at the same time. That is the sound that we've been listening to so far. Now what I've done is I've gone into the delay, and I've sent it a little bit into the reverb. So now what we're going to hear is we're going to hear this mixture. We're going to hear the effects in series and parallel. So let's listen to it. Let's go to the clean sound. Oh, actually, let's do this. Let's go to the clean sound without the effects, and then let's listen to this series parallel connection. Dry, not very interesting. All right, now let me go ahead and do this in series and parallel. And while I'm doing it, I may have to adjust some fader levels here. Yeah. Yeah, listen to that sound. Just awesome. Very lush. Notice it was very lush, but the guitar never lost its clarity and its place in the mix. It's still very upfront and it's very clear, and it's not all colored and mushed up with all this delay and reverb. Really awesome. Now let's listen to it with the distorted guitar sound. Again, a quick listen without it, without the effects. All right, now let's go ahead and listen to it with series and delay and reverb in series and parallel. All right. Again, very, very lush, just a big sound. And that, I mean, that just, to me, it sounds awesome. Now, of course, I would adjust my delay and reverb to get the perfect level for what I'm doing, especially if I'm playing live. Because remember, you can do this playing live into your DAW and still set this all up, provided your computer is fairly modern. And your interface is fairly modern. You can get away with a lot. But notice I got this nice big lush sound just using 2 plugins, no pedals. I didn't even tweak the reverb much, and the delay was very simple. It's a very simple single line delay with just one little filter in it. There's really nothing to it, and yet we get this glorious sound where the guitar stays up front and very clear with this nice background ambiance. And there is no way to get this sound that I know of with pedals, because pedals, even in fancy switchers, don't allow you to do series and parallel at the same time. Now, all this being said, one more thing. If I go ahead and go in here and press the solo button, in case you don't know what the solo means, it means I'm only going to hear the verb channel. So what I'm going to do is this. So I did a quick edit on some of the chords that I played to be just like if I played the chord with my volume off, and I go ahead, play the chord and fade in using my volume knob on my guitar. Listen to this sound. It's just the verb. As you can see, I just hit the solo button, and let's listen to that really quick. Yeah, it's a great little kind of a pad sound. Yeah, really, really interesting. And I'm gonna play it just a little more, to hear the last little bit of the clean parts, and listen to it now with just the verb. Now it's up to you whether you really like that sound. For me, I think that is really useful for the type of ambient electronic space music I like to create. It's definitely just this music that's there in a cloud that sounds really neat. At least I think it sounds really neat. But when you play it live and start swelling in chords, you get this beautiful ambient sound, as you heard. And again, it's a sound that you can't, and all I did just to get that sound was to tap the solo button over here. That's it. I tap the solo button, I have this weird ambient sound. Tap it again, now I have the full sound. So again, as far as I know, you can't do something like this in with pedals. You wouldn't be able to do this. Maybe I could be wrong, but I don't know how you could. I don't know of a product that does that. So I hope this was helpful for you on how to build really cool guitar effects using a DAW plugins and understanding series and parallel connections. I only used 2 plugins. I didn't use anything fancy. I used a stock delay plugin, 1 delay line, and although the reverb was a paid plugin that I bought a long time ago, I just used a preset. Didn't do any fancy tweaking, just made the pre-delay a little longer. And that's it. And then all the rest of it is just playing with the faders and understanding what parallel and series is, and even better, how you can do things in series and parallel at the same time. Beautiful sounds. Thanks so much for watching, you guys, and I'll see you around real soon.